What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for yet another panel show for you guys. We've got a star-studded guest panel. We got Sonny from Sonny TV, Sonny Talks Spurs TV. How you doing, Sonny?
I'm very, very good. Excited to be back and ready to deep dive into some Tottenham today.
Yeah, and me as well, because there's a lot to get through. But with you, Barnaby, last time you were on, we were talking about, is the Spurs form sustainable? Since then, the whole team has gone down injured, and we've lost 2 games. But how are you keeping?
Yeah, very well, mate. Thanks again for having me on. Appreciate it. Yeah, tough week last week, but it hasn't ruined my positivity.
That's good. And let's get into that because, look, like I said, last time we were speaking about the sustainable form. And the thing that we kind of alluded to is that it's not sustainable if we do get the injuries. The injuries have happened, probably to a much bigger scale than we all could have hoped or imagined. But, Sonny, how concerning after those injuries was that Wolves performance?
I said on my own channel, I compared it to Conte-esque ball. It was probably the worst we've played due to the players that we had to offer. You know, your Dyers, your Højbjergs, your Ben Davies of this world. It's just a shame. We all knew that this squad was, threadbare. We knew that the starting 11 was strong. But once you take out, we know Maddison has got ankle injuries and it would be a possibility. And same with Bassoum's got injury issues in his history. But that's the thing, you have to prepare for these things. And then I've seen a lot of the fan base now reflecting, saying, did we do enough in the summer? Now we've got to do it all in January. We're being linked to players under the sun today again. So, yeah, it just is a shame. But obviously, I hope that most of the fan base still backs the manager because he's, it's still some of the best football we've seen in God knows how long since before, the Poch days probably. So, yeah, got to remain positive, I think, personally. But that game was quite harrowing in stages.
Yeah, it really was. Do you liken it to Conte ball, Barnaby, from what you saw on the weekend?
I think people are very quick to fly off the handle on these things, to be totally honest. It's like Sonny said, we all know that we had injuries and suspensions. And to be honest, I know people are very quick to blame the, Dyer, Højbjerg, Davis triumvirate for these things. Oh, they're, Jose's players or Conte's players, or even from before that, they're not good enough, etc., etc. I don't look at a lot of clubs in the Premier League and see better squad players than them. Take away Man City, take away the fact that Chelsea have bought all the young talent across Europe. And in reality, I think in terms of squad players, they are more than good enough. It was just a difficult performance. Manchester City went to Wolves and won. Newcastle drew with Wolves. It's not an easy place to go. We nearly won. We were 7 minutes away from winning. And I think personally, the reason we lost that game is because we are playing Ange ball now. And he is 100% on taking free kicks quickly, playing the ball short, trying to finish a game in an attacking way rather than desperately hold on as our default position has been in the past. And the reality is we are going to have to take the rough with the smooth on this. We're going to lose some games that we are nearly going to win, but I think over and above everything else, we will win more games as a result of playing on the front foot than we would have done by camping on our 6-yard box, as we did enough under Jose and Conte and Nuno, and he is trying to teach us how to do it. So, yeah, I agree with Sonny. It was a tough watch at times, and obviously a difficult ending. But I think a bit of realism needed.
In terms of those concerns, though, like a player who I wanted to highlight who maybe hasn't been as good before the sending off since after is Yves Bissouma. In my opinion, he put in a pretty worrying display at Molineux. Is that just a blip, or is this something to be concerned about, Barnaby?
I think it's more likely that either he's playing with a bit of a knock, or that opposition teams are kind of realizing that he's the absolute key to our formation, and especially in a game. And our style, and especially in a game like that where we weren't blessed with our usual kind of midfield options and Destiny on the left to give him more options in the central midfield when we're playing with the ball. I think once you kind of take Bissouma out of the game, then we were left passing the ball to Emerson Royale in central midfield, and that's always going to go backwards and sideways, similar to Højbjerg in a way. Like I said, I think, these players are good enough squad players, but that's not to say that I think they are the players that Ange Postecoglou would buy if he was across it now. So they're players who will be phased out. But yeah, we were left a little bit one-dimensional in central midfield as a result of those injuries and suspensions. And as you mentioned with, or Sonny mentioned with Madders' ankles, like the reality is he was doing a lot of the lifting for us this season in terms of when we were struggling to get the ball out of defence in the way that Ange wants us to do it. Madders would come incredibly deep, get on the ball, be brave, and kind of unlock that key for us. So
Sim, we spoke in the summer, didn't we, about at the end of the summer window about we didn't do enough in the summer. We were happy with the caliber of player coming through the door, but we knew, everyone knew that a couple of injuries and we've really sold ourselves short. Is that really coming to the fore now?
Look, it's only been 2 games, but definitely on the basis of when we have had to use these players, you only have to look back at the Fulham game as well. In the Carabao Cup, we made a lot of changes and we saw very similar results. So I'm looking at you can only go with what we're seeing, and what we're judging on what we're seeing whenever the fringe players have to start games. Apart from obviously Højbjerg started the Fulham game, and that was fine because if he was going to much more settled 11 and just one change. And obviously I think Højbjerg is a good player anyway, so that's okay. But when we made so many changes with so many of the fringe players coming in, I think it's always going to be difficult to get to immediately start playing at the level that our first 11 was playing at. Our first 11, not only was it very settled, but I think each position has the profile that Postecoglou was looking for, but by and large. Maybe the wingers is the only position, but I think our first 11 throughout the season was very settled and was really getting to grips with how Ange wants to play. And all of a sudden, we lose 5 starters in one game. And it's no surprise we look disjointed against that Wolves side. And I think a big part of it is having a lot of the fringe players on of maybe what we hope. I think a lot of them are basically not that great when it comes to playing the kind of football Postecoglou wants to play, and then maybe his style of play. But I think as well, another problem is just too many of them in at the same time. I think if you had one of Dyer or Davis in, it wouldn't be such a problem. But having both of them maybe is. If you had, let's say, same having Højbjerg there. So, but the thing is with Ange, you got to remember, start of the season. If you look at the starting 11 at the first game of the season, we had Richarlison up front, we had Ollie Skip in midfield, we have Emerson Royale at right back, and even though we got a draw that day, he decided to change it up in the next game, and he thought he would go in a different direction because he thinks other players are probably more suited to how he wants to play. And even after a whole pre-season, looking at the players, that's how he decided to start the first game of the season, and then he changed it pretty quickly. So he's probably looking at that Wolves game, and it was very disjointed and it was a poor performance. And it was worrying considering the fixtures we have coming up, very difficult fixtures we have coming up. Villa at home, Man City away, then West Ham, then Newcastle. These are tough games. And so going into those games off the back of a disjointed, poor display is worrying. But I do back Ange Postecoglou to look at solutions in the squad that he has and change it up if he can find players who he thinks maybe could suit the system a bit more, like bringing a Lo Celso, who may be a bit more technical, have a bit more technical ability, a bit more attacking vision, which I feel like we lacked a bit, especially in midfield area. Maybe change up the centre back position if need be. Albeit I thought Ben Davies had a brilliant game, maybe Dyer less so, but maybe change that position. Maybe give Ashley Phillips a go. Maybe change that up if he thinks that's a better profile. I think what I'm trying to say is Ange has shown himself to be able to find solutions to problems which present themselves. And I think that Wolves' performance did definitely present a problem. I don't think he can look at that game and say, we just go again with the same 11. I think he has to change it up based on what he saw. But I back Ange Postecoglou. I think there are definitely options in the squad. We have Bentancur, we have Lo Celso. There are options there where he can change it to look for solutions, to find the problems of why we look so disjointed. And I'm not so... Maybe the next few games it's a bit worrying because we've got very tough games, but I do believe he can get us, even with the injuries we have, he can get us back to a situation where we're playing good football again. I don't think we're going to see this football that we saw against Wolves for the next 5 weeks. I really don't believe that.
I really hope so, because it'll be a hard 5 weeks if it is. But there was some comments from Brennan Johnson after the game against Wolves, and he said, we almost went too safe. We all went into safety mode where we couldn't see, where we could see we would get out with 3 points. We can't be playing like that, which he's talking about conservatively. We'll look back at it and try be more aggressive in pressing, positional and playing forward, which is really where we've built our hallmark of our team this season, in doing everything that we didn't do against Wolves. And with those comments about Brennan Johnson, why do you think the team reverted into those kind of situations, Sonny?
Well, I'll be honest, I watched before the game, and Postecoglou did an interview with Rio Ferdinand, and he highlighted a moment from the Shakhtar game in pre-season where I think we were 1-0 up, 43 minutes on the clock. And there's still a lot of that in the squad, where these players obviously have been coached by 3 more defensive style coaches in Nuno, Conte and Mourinho. And usually when push comes to shove, they like to maybe, drop off a little bit, looking at the clock, looking at the score. And probably when we're sitting at 1-0 and, we went 1-0 up early, they were like, maybe hold this lead a little bit. But Ange is still trying to install this, really attacking style of football. And, I think I'd like to highlight as well, we're obviously 12 games into a new process, a new philosophy. And the fact that Tottenham have started this impressively under Ange is something to behold, because when you look at his other clubs, Celtic, Yokohama, the Australian sides, they all had moments where they started quite slowly, and then they had a result like the Chelsea game where they lost 3-0. I think Celtic lost 3-0 to Leverkusen. Brisbane lost 3-0 to Melbourne. And they were like the eye-opening games where it was like, right, we need to start, picking the pieces up. Whereas I feel like we've already got groundwork there. There's still just, certain positions where Ange has got to tweak certain things, because I still think, again, in the Wolves game, we obviously did start well, took the early lead, and there was chances for us to go ahead even more. Same with Chelsea. If Son was narrowly onside, we could have been 2-0 up. But there is still, as I say, a process. The players are still learning. The team is still all over the place at the moment, with players who are still adjusting. For example, Mickey van der Ven didn't even play a minute of pre-season, so the fact he hit the ground running was impressive in itself. Yeah. So I'm still wanting to remain positive, and I hope the fan base do, because I've seen a lot of fans say, is Ange being naive? Should we sit back? We sat back so much under these previous managers. I want to see attacking football, for God's sakes.
I mean, for me, this season was always supposed to be just a building season anyway. I don't think that anyone thought coming into the season we'd be fighting for the title or be up there. I mean, a lot of fans thought we'd be lucky just to get into the Europa League this season, never mind the Champions League. So I don't think there's any cause for worry, cause for concern. We just need to stick with it, stick with the project. Yeah, it's going to be a hard few months with the injuries that we do have, but I think the Spurs fans, well, me specifically, trust that we're on the right path, and I think we're going to be on the right path this season, regardless of the injuries. But with the situation that we're in right now, Sim alluded to the games that we've got coming up, and this injury crisis pretty much couldn't have come at a worse time for Tottenham. Villa at home next, Man City away next, and West Ham at home and Newcastle at home coming up after that. With Romero and Van de Ven definitely out for the City game and the Villa game, how many points do you reckon we're taking out of those next 4 games, Barnaby?
I just want to play devil's advocate. I just want to play devil's advocate first and say I think these injuries could have come at a much worse time. They'd come before the start of the season, and we had to play the first 6, 7, 8 games with the team we've got now. Then we might be, you'd have everybody talking about a relegation battle. So
okay, what are we talking about? Second worst time then, Barnaby. Second worst.
We're talking about Villa home, City away, and who's the other 2? Sorry,
West Ham and Newcastle at home.
9 points.
9 points.
I think we'll win all the home games, and I think we'll get battered at City.
Wow, that is some positivity. Sonny, how many do you reckon we're getting?
I'm going to go with... I like Barnaby's positivity. I think we'll beat West Ham. I think this football is too much for West Ham. Newcastle are a weird team as well. They're either hit or miss. I think they're still a bit rattled, so I'd like to think we'd give them a good game. Villa, all these teams, the 1 week they could be really impressive, and next week I think we could beat West Ham, we'll beat Villa, lose to City, draw. So that's 7 points. I've added it up. There you go.
Wow.
That's 7.
Sim?
I'm going to be positive.
Last time you asked me, I said 4, but I think that was before we saw the Newcastle injuries. I mean, I'm looking at them. If Newcastle have the same injuries then as they do currently, I think we beat them, to be honest. But I don't think we beat Villa, to be honest. I think we lose to City. West Ham, I think we beat, and then Newcastle depends on injuries. I think that's probably going to be a draw as well. I know I'm going to say 5, but I know that sounds incredibly negative, but I honestly don't think that would be that bad given those fixtures, and I still think that keeps us well in the fight for the top 4. And then off the back of that, hopefully a more kind fixture this after, maybe with a few injuries back or whatever, suspensions are back, and then we can maybe start winning games again. So I know 5 points sounds incredibly conservative and negative, but I actually think if we can just come away with those games with only 1 defeat, and if we can win one of them, I think that still keeps us in a pretty good way for top 4. I think that probably keeps us still in the top 5 come out the end of those 5 games.
I said 3 points yesterday, which was extremely negative, but having a look at it now, I'm going to go for a win against Villa, because I just don't think Villa are the same animal away from home than they are at Villa Park, which has been shown this season. We'll lose to City, beat West Ham, and depending on Newcastle, I'm going to go draw against Newcastle. So 7 points I'm going to go for as well. So I'm going to go with you, Sonny. But
and then do you guys, sorry to interrupt, do you guys feel then that, so at the end of those 4 games, you feel like we'll have which players back? So obviously Romero will be back, and obviously Destiny's back already. So what do you think will change after that? Or is that just us using those 4 games because they're till the end of the year, or what?
Why I think it'll be more positive towards the end of that run.
Yeah, I just mean what's going to change after that?
Well, Basuma's going to be back.
Basuma's back, Adogi's back, Romero will be back, Bentancur will be more settled into the team as well. Yeah. I do think we'll have more options available to us, the later it goes. So I think we'll get stronger and stronger.
We've only picked those fixtures just because it's quite a hard run over the next 4. So it's not particularly about injuries, I guess.
Got it. Yeah, because I think another positive way of spinning this stuff is that basically by the time we next play, which I think is the 25th, it's only then a month and 5-6 days till the window opens, and I think that is a positive way of looking at it. So if we talk about maybe that covers those 4 games, cover a great amount of that, then I think it is a positive way of looking at it, based on the fact that Ange keeps talking about wanting to get stuff done early in the window, but obviously the realities of that, and not many clubs like to sell early because they know that they can maybe strangle out a better price if they have more needy buying clubs further back towards the end of January.
But on the flip side to that, Barnaby, we've been playing 3 games a month up until now. In December, we got 7 games. In the space of that time, yes, it's a short amount of time, but we've actually got quite a lot of games in that amount of time. So with our kind of short squad, it does concern me a little bit.
6 wins, 1 draw then.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, in terms of the lineup we saw against Wolves, obviously we know Romero is going to be back. Well, not back next game, but Udogi's going to be back next game. But
Romero's back for the West Ham game.
Well, yeah, he's going to be back for the West Ham game. For the Villa game specifically, with Romero still out, what changes would you guys like to see for that game based on what you saw? Or would you like to see, do you think it's just a one-off and he'll keep it the same and we expect to see better performance even based on the players that were playing in that game? We'll go with you, Sonny. What do you think he should make lots of changes? Do you think he'll look at that team and think, I need to find some solutions here? Or do you think he maybe thinks that was just a bad game and I think these players can still do a job?
I think you keep the front line the same. Johnson, I think, has been really impressive so far. I felt gutted for him, actually, in some of the other fixtures where he got hooked off early due to the sending-offs. The midfield will be interesting because I assume Højbjerg will play the 6, and then the choice is, do you bring Bentancur on, who's still not fully match fit, I'd say.
Although he's been called up for Uruguay, it's important to notice.
Oh, that's interesting. So I feel like he'd be the best because he to me now, with all the injuries and suspensions, he's our best progressive passer in the team, I'd say. I feel like Lo Celso is still not ready at all. I feel like I
thought he made a difference though, Lo Celso, didn't he, against Wolves?
I'm not sure. I've got massive question marks over him, and I feel like Bentancur still has got that extra in his game where he can find that the gap between the lines. And then it's the centre back situation where I do think Davis, I think, keeps his spot. I feel like I was harsh at him at the beginning. There was moments where he showed one, real leadership, and two, just tenaciousness. Then it's who do you bring in? Do you bring in an Ashley Phillips or a Dorrington and really chuck them in the deep end per se? I feel like Phillips is probably the more ideal player to put there because, we have brought him in the summer for a reason and, he's just a unit. Against a team like Villa as well, I feel like it's good to have like that sort of, guy at the back. Destiny Udogie as well. I feel like that's the problem I saw against Wolves. It was that option of passing into the the inverted wing backs that was a problem. It sort of broke down. So having him back will be crucial, and Pedro Porro, I think that will make his game better as well, having his partner in crime back. So I think personally, Phillips in, and then it's probably, I feel like it will be Skip. I can just see Skip starting, but personally, I'd probably just start Bentancur if he's ready. That is.
I think that actually brings us really nicely onto the next topic, which you kind of did allude to a bit in your comments there. But Barnaby, do you think that with the problems that we have now, particularly in defence, that Spurs should be giving youth a bit more of a chance with the likes of Ashley Phillips and potentially even Alfie Dorrington?
I think it's really difficult to, and I see it happen a lot, and I understand it, but to say we need to play Ashley Phillips or we need to play Dorrington, none of us, very few of us have seen them play. I've not seen either of them play. I've seen the odd YouTube clip of Ashley Phillips and I guess Dorrington as well, bringing the ball out from the back, and it looks great. But the reality is, of course, Ange sees them play every day, and there's a reason why he went with Dyer and Davis, and I think he'll go with Dyer and Davis again against Villa. And I think obviously Udogie will come in for Royal, and that will make a big difference. As Sonny was saying, I agree with that. And then I think Højbjerg will play 6, and then I think Lo Celso will come in, because I agree with you, Ben. I thought he did look like he was willing to get on the ball and be brave on the ball in that little cameo. And I think we do need someone who's going to be willing to unlock the door a bit more creatively. In terms of the long term and bringing youth in, I agree that I don't think Ange is afraid of it. Threw Brennan Johnson in straight away as soon as he came in. I don't think the age really matters. It's just a matter of, is there any evidence so far to suggest that those youngsters have impressed him enough in training to get a start? It doesn't look that way. Similarly with Valise, who, although seems to be a bit ahead of his schedule because Ange said he wouldn't play for the first 6 months, it doesn't look like he's willing to kind of give him a start or anything like that. And why would he, with Sonny playing, well, other than the Wolves game, playing really well? So if those players are good enough, they will play. That's the truth. But I don't think we're going to see them against Villa personally.
Sim?
I think Barnaby's completely right. I don't think we should be calling or criticising Ange for not using these very young players when we personally aren't there in training. And obviously, I think it's a bit complicated because we've obviously come off regimes of Mourinho and Conte who are very adverse to using young players. So we're very sensitive to managers who are not willing to use younger players and give them an opportunity. But I think you can't throw that at Ange when he's willing to throw Sarr in immediately, he's willing to throw Udogie in immediately. Van de Ven, who's still quite young himself, he only signed a few days before pre-season.
Van de Ven's the same age as Brian Hill.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, true. Brian Hill, he hasn't played too much, but obviously Phillips has been on the bench a few times, and also Jamie Donnelly's been on the bench a couple of times as well, which also a player with Maddison injured. Is he a player people are maybe thinking he can play that number 10 spot, considering the form he's in the under 20 under 21s as well? But it's important to remember that we obviously do have other players who are ahead of him in the pecking order right now, like senior players, and maybe Ange feels like they're more ready to step into Premier League football, whereas these youngsters who are 18 and have barely played a Premier League game. It's different with Udogie and Sarr because they've played top level football, haven't they? Udogie's played 2 seasons at Udinese, Sarr's played 2 seasons at Metz. Van de Ven obviously played top level football in the Bundesliga last season. It's very different from that to Phillips, who's played 8 games in the Championship, Dorrington, who's never played a senior game in his career, same with Jamie Donnelly. So it's a bit like comparing apples to oranges when I compare those young players to the young players that we're looking to bring through. So I'd love for them to get a chance, and part of me just wants Ange just to throw Phillips in the deep end, just to know because there's not much we can learn from having Eric Dyer at centre back. We know what he's going to offer, and if we lose with him there, like, he's an easy scapegoat. Whereas, like, if we throw Phillips there, he's the kind of more of the right profile we're looking for in a centre back in terms of how Ange wants to play, and maybe that's a kind of, if we're looking to fill in what Van de Ven is, what we're losing with Van de Ven not there, maybe someone with the profile of Ashley Phillips is going to be a better solution than just chucking Eric Dyer, who we know can't give us what Van de Ven was giving us. But at the same time, you know, these are very good teams that we're coming up against, and I don't want to throw in Ashley Phillips in against Watkins before he's ready, and all of a sudden he gets cooked and his confidence gets shattered, and all of a sudden you got fans, piling in saying, "Oh, he's not good enough. He should never been playing." And players at that age read these kind of things, and they all see that on social media. And I don't want that to kill his confidence. You have to be very careful with these players. I think a lot of managers have said before about throwing players in too early, and then it can kill their confidence, especially as a centre back. I think that's it's a position where you need to be very much ready to play that position, like when you step in, because if you're 18 and you make one mistake and it costs you points, that can kill your confidence. It's very different to throwing in a Jamie Donnelly, where if he misses a chance, it doesn't really matter. But if Phillips makes a mistake, that could cost you points, and there's a lot more pressure in that position. So I'm a lot more hesitant if in that question to chuck in a defender at that age. But I'm more willing to give someone like Donnelly a go, to be honest, in the absence of a creative player in the front three, because for me, I think younger players in the attacking line, I think even if they make a mistake, it won't maybe be seen to be costing you points like it would be for a defender.
Yeah, I guess the only difference is that we're so much less stocked in the centre back areas, right? We're just desperate for good centre backs to come in and make a difference, whereas in that position where Donnelly can come in, we've got a Giovanni Lo Celso who came on and made difference. We could got Kulusevski, who we can move inside as well. We got Bentancur, who could potentially fill in there. So we've actually got top players that can fill in those roles. So Jamie Donnelly is a bit further down the pecking order than maybe an Ashley Phillips is at centre back. That's just the reality of the situation. But Sonny, do you think that maybe Jamie Donnelly and Brian Hill should be getting more minutes? Or maybe more specifically Brian Hill, because he's the one that's been around for a lot longer, 22 years of age. Would you like to see maybe Kulusevski come in the middle and Brian Hill go out wide with Brennan Johnson?
Yeah, I think, I've said myself many a times, I think Kulusevski is good enough to play more centrally. It's a shame. Every time I see him break away, I'm just thinking if he just had a bit more pace on that wing, he would be like a world beater. But that's not his game, so we can't assume that. But with Brian Hill, I feel like he's a tricky one because he's not really been given a chance, has he? He comes on, has a cameo. I think one of his better games was Palace last season, where he threaded through a lovely ball to Kane. I think he is an Ange type winger as well. Like we see, he's got the pace, he's got the dribbling technique. He's just quite weak, isn't he? I know people use that as a stereotype for him, but if he gets more minutes and more chances. And, that forward line isn't set. We've seen, Son's been moved across. Brennan Johnson's been moved across. Richarlison's been dropped. It is... Ange is willing to experiment with that front line. So, I think, give Brian Hill more of a go. Maybe not in this run of games. I think this run of games might be a bit hard for him. But maybe, in that Christmas period where it's going to get quite hard and we have Forest and Everton, I think, the 2 games after that. I think why not give them a go? I'd like to see, we've got this squad of players. I'd like to see them all given a chance, because otherwise, what's the point of having a squad?
Yeah, well, lack of squad, more like.
Yeah, true, yeah.
All right, well, let's move on and let's talk about Richarlison. Richarlison. We've heard links with him being linked to a move to Saudi in January. Barnaby, what's your take on Richarlison? Would you like to cash in on him now? Still believe in him? Where's your head at?
I actually did a transfer episode that's going up in half an hour on the Spurred On Podcast today, and I talked about Richarlison and these Saudi links. I personally don't think we should lose Richarlison unless we get offered 75 million quid. If we get offered 75 million, it's 15 million above what we paid for him, and he wants to go.
What about 70?
It's much of a muchness, that 5 million quid, to be honest. But I just think unless
65?
unless it's big money, and no, I wouldn't go 65. I just think unless it's big money that we can properly
25.
reinvest, then I honestly don't think we're going to get a better player than Richarlison. Obviously I'm aware that he hasn't scored loads of goals, but I do think, and I probably said it last time I was on here, I do think he's stronger in that left wing position than he is as a 9 at the moment. He made a couple of great assists. The one against Liverpool comes to mind. He seems to be feeling less pressure out there, and honestly, I have lots of Everton friends and family who just say he's an unbelievable player. Playing off the left is perfect for him. And he just needs some confidence. And I think Ange is still the right person to get some confidence into him. And I don't think, certainly from the Premier League, we would get many players of his caliber for, let's say 45, 50 million if that was the money. But on the flip side of that, to play devil's advocate, I really rate Ange's ability to pick players who have the attributes for what he needs. And if he thinks that Richarlison isn't the player to get in behind that he wants off the left, like Brennan Johnson is, and he wants someone like this English kid at Juve who we've been linked with this week, Illing Jr., and he wants someone a bit younger and a bit more pacey and a bit more powerful and willing to get in behind, then Ange will let him go, and we'll see what happens. I trust in Ange's kind of ability to pick a player at the moment. But for me, personally, I think there's more to come from Richarlison. So I'm not one of the, Spurs Twitterati desperately wanting him to leave.
But, having said that, though, obviously we can all recognise it hasn't worked out for him at Tottenham as of yet. So how long do you actually give it, Barnaby?
I think there's more to it. I think the reality of Tottenham is they haven't bought a striker that's worked in 15 years. Every single player, in fact, arguably every single player we paid big money for, up until Van de Ven, really,
Romero,
and Romero, but especially in the striking position has not worked, and there's an added pressure and has been since Harry Kane came through. But you can take it back to Soldado, and that it's difficult to find 9s in this era unless you're willing to pay over £100 million, and we're not in a position to be doing that. It's not going to happen anytime soon, I don't predict. So how long do I give him? I mean, in terms of him, he always gives 100%. Like, I think I have problems with players when I think they don't bother anymore, they don't try. I don't see that from him, and I'm not seeing that from any of our players at the moment. So that's my kind of number one position on it, and I would give him as long as Ange gives him.
Fair play. Sonny, where's your head at with the Richarlison situation?
Well, I did a video on my channel about it today as well, and I sort of said if the Saudi clubs who have got, we know how endless their money pit is, if they can cough up the money for him, then I'll be happy to let him go. But
how much we talking? How much we talking, Sonny? How low do you go?
I went as low as 40 earlier.
40, really?
Yeah, I 40, 45, 50 at a push. I feel
it's going up now. 60, 70.
The problem is Barnaby's now got in my head and twisted.
I've sown a seed of doubt.
Because I did say, like, I still think there's one, a good player there, and two, what other options have we got? But then the players that we're being linked with Nusa, the Norwegian winger. We're being linked with Santiago Jimenez as well. Strikers, like, they are players for his position. So it does suggest that, are Tottenham, are Ange, are Johan Lang all thinking maybe this is a thing? But the problem is the rumour's so, like, unambiguous. It's like Saudi clubs want Richarlison. It doesn't even say one name, but I know their own.
It's Newcastle, mate. Newcastle.
Yeah, that's the thing. He'll get loaned back to Newcastle and score against us, and then we'll be head in hands again. But I think if the price is right, then I think we'd be willing to listen. But I agree with Barnaby. I think there is a player there who's got. I actually heard someone say in the summer that Ange prefers strikers like Richarlison to Harry Kane, which I found a bit weird. But
not one person in this world prefers a Richarlison to a Harry Kane.
Richarlison's a better fit for the system.
It doesn't mean I preferred him, though.
True.
Maybe that. But yeah, I'd like to give him a chance. And for timeline, I'd say rest of this season and then one more year. I think one more year. But then we've seen, and Barnaby was related there to strikers, but think about Ndombele. High price we paid for him. No one wants him. We're loaning him out every year. And Daniel Levy never wants to take lower than what we've really paid for him. So then we're stuck. So it will be more of a, that sort of issue if it comes to it as well, I believe as well. He'll want 75 million.
Can I just jump in?
Go on.
quickly?
Yeah.
I've got a bit of a theory that came to my head, really, which is, when Richarlison was at Watford, he was absolutely the main man, tore it up. When he's at Everton, he's absolutely the main man, the most important name on the team sheet, the player that the fans love the most. And I think when it comes to strikers a lot, they need that love. They need to be like the main man. They need to know that the team are going to just pass to them and they're the most important stuff. The reality is, I think, in the waters that Tottenham are swimming transfer money-wise, we cannot afford to buy the kind of player who is going to be that main man in our team. And especially when Harry Kane was at the club, nobody was going to come in and be the main man as striker alongside him or to potentially replace him if he's injured or anything like that. So it's very, very difficult. And that's why I'm not surprised when I hear the thing saying that, Ange isn't really looking for nines. He's looking for players who can play all across that front three, because then there's always like space for them and always a chance for them. And it doesn't have to be with a lot of the pressure put on them as the nine. However, also I did talk about today in my transfer show about this guy Guirassy, who's like second in the Bundesliga scoring charts for Stuttgart, and he's been a bit of a journeyman, but he's ripped it up this season, and he looks like a kind of more, almost like he's taller, but more like a Defoe, plays off the last man, is on the last shoulder the whole time, and trying to make in those runs in behind. So if we buy him, then that goes against everything I've just said.
And also the player that we've been linked with over the past couple of weeks is Santiago Jimenez, who I can't remember who, but someone mentioned his name before. I think it was Sonny. So like, if we could sell Richarlison for 45 and buy Santiago for 45, would you take that right now, Sonny?
Possibly. I'd like to get Noosa as well. I feel like we'd have to get another option as well. I feel like, but then again, we've got how many players? It's because, you got to look at it as well in that position. Perisic is probably leaving as well. So that there's a gap there.
Well, where happened to Gift Orban?
Gift Orban. You know what? Gift Orban.
He's done now.
No. Gift Orban went off the boil, but he's actually back now. He's actually scoring goals again. Yeah, he's back scoring goals again.
We're just going to be linked to every, unknown winger.
Bring in Gift
in Europe.
Make Gift Orban great again. That's what I say.
Also, it's just a great name for puns as well. So the gift that keeps on giving will be on every headline. So
isn't he small? He's smaller than Brian Hill, isn't he?
That can't be possible. But yeah, I'll take that. I think I'll take that deal.
I think for me, when it comes to Richarlison, I was one of his biggest advocates when he first came. Like, I really wanted Spurs to sign him, and I thought he would be a fan favourite when he came. And I can't lie, at the moment, how many Premier League goals he got? 2 Premier League goals since he's come to Tottenham.
One this season, one last season. Yeah.
Yeah. So
we don't count the disallowed ones. Oh, that's a shame.
Oh, okay.
How many times has he taken off his shirt to celebrate?
Yeah, exactly. Four times. Like, even I couldn't have imagined how badly it would have gone on that front, to be honest, because he was a goal scorer when he was at Everton. So the fact that he's been so poor in front of goal pretty much ever since he's come here has been a real disappointment to me. I'm not going to lie. I think this season performance level's been a bit better, but when he got his chance at the beginning of the season to play up front and be like the main man, he was absolutely shocking. I can't deny he was terrible in those first 3 games. Now he's been a bit better out on the left, but I think he's played well there. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think he's a natural fit for what Ange wants in that position. I think he's doing a job there. But it doesn't mean, like, in a perfect world we want Richarlison out on that left wing. I don't think so. So for me, I'm not saying throw him away. But if you ask me right now on the 14th of November, would I take 40 million from Saudi in January? As of right now, I probably would, to be honest, based on what we've seen. I can't deny, because I think what we've seen just hasn't been good enough. But I'm very much willing to change my opinion if between now and January, he puts in a number of good performances and shows he's got more to give. Maybe puts a bit of a scoring run together, or even if his level of performance drastically improves over the next, how many games we've got till January? 10 games? No, 7 games.
A bit more, but yeah.
So if he can show in those 7 games, to me, that he's got a lot more that he's got a lot more in his locker than he's been showing. Even in his good performances of late, he's been good, but he still hasn't been amazing. He has been good though.
He always leaves you wanting more.
Yeah,
doesn't he?
I've never been blown away by any performance he's given us. That's the truth.
What's he got to do? Double his goal tally? That one more.
Yeah, just one more goal. That's all we want.
Give me like 3 goals or something from now till January. Maybe, and I can think about it and think, okay, maybe it's not worth selling him. Maybe it's worth keeping him around. But if he keeps putting in these performances, I'm more than happy to sell him right now because it's just not enough. And at the moment, it's just I feel like he's taking up a spot, which I think, as Sonny said, you get a young winger in there, even a guy who's getting a similar goal output to Richarlison, but is just more of a threat on the ball. He's taking people on. He's causing a bit more chaos than Richarlison is at the moment. He's making the ball stick. He's not giving the ball away as needlessly as Richarlison is. I think that I'd much rather that than what I'm seeing right now from Richie, unfortunately. And this is coming from someone who I'm a big fan of his. I was a massive fan of his at Everton. I really thought he could have been a star here at Tottenham. But I can't lie and say that from what we've seen, it's been anywhere near shocking, to be honest.
And let's say Ange does persist with him. How long would you want Ange to give him?
I mean, what does that even mean, give him?
I mean, how long to keep putting your faith until he wants to sell him? I
mean, between now and January, he has to have a good next 7 games.
So it's all relying on his next 7 games.
100%. If we get an offer from Saudi, a significant offer, 40 million plus, right? And he hasn't shown anything between now and January to suggest that his form is improving, I'll take it. 100%. I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with that, to be honest. I as well. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of bringing in Richarlison to this club, but I think once he was here and I saw the kind of attitude he was showing, I quickly jumped on the bandwagon 100%. And after Ange Postecoglou came in, I was of the opinion that he would actually be a really good number 9 option for Ange, where, you know, sometimes the number 9 under Ange can not see the ball for 20, 30 minutes, but he needs to be in the right place at the right time to score that goal and be fairly clinical. And he just hasn't done that. And since moving out to the left wing, I agree with Barnaby, he has got better, but I still think better is still not good enough, in my opinion, from what Richarlison has shown. So I'm very open to moving him on. I'm very open to looking at this Nusa and this Santiago Jimenez, but I'm going to caveat it with I trust in every decision that Ange Postecoglou wants to make, because I think that every decision he has made and what he's shown in the Spurs managerial career so far is that we're on the right track. So I just want to put the full faith in the manager, and if he wants to back Richarlison, then I'm going to back Richarlison as well, and I think that's what it's going to come down to.
Can I just say, can you imagine that negotiation between Daniel Levy and the Saudis? Like, can you imagine Daniel Levy
never deal with
taking £40 million? I don't think so.
He wouldn't, yeah.
I know what you've been paying for some of these players. You just keep on going up. We don't care. So,
and that's true. I think because it's a Saudi club, 100%, I think we can definitely get our money back for what we paid for him. And I don't even know, because it was 50 million plus 10 in add-ons. I doubt we've reached those 10. It was probably
like want to go as well.
I don't think he'd want to go Saudi, would he? Sure, you would think, because with I don't know when the next Copa America is or whatever he wants.
Go play with Neymar? Why not?
Yeah, he might go play with Neymar.
Yeah, we'll try. I don't know what. Yeah, depends what Saudi club.
He's got him tatted on his back, isn't he? So
exactly.
Neymar wants it removed. I don't know if Neymar's going to veto it. I'm not.
He's read it off in his sleep.
Yeah,
he's already got the Saudi flag on his neck.
Yeah, exactly.
But he seems the kind of character who would want to stay and prove a point, to be fair, and want to show that he's not moving as a failure. But
I don't think we get anywhere close to our money back unless he goes to Saudi.
I agree right now, 100%. I 100% agree with that. That's the reality.
But look, I think that's all we have today. So I want to thank you guys for coming on. Thank everyone in the chat for coming and joining us today. But let's go around the room and see where we can find these lovely people online. And let's start with Sonny and tell us what's going on your channel this week, and tell us where they can find you as well.
Yeah, I'm doing, because obviously it's international break, I'm doing some transfer deep dives on Antonio Nusa and Santiago Jimenez. I've done a Richarlison video today that's went out, and I also have done a video of what we've learned so far this season, where I have actually been more positive than negative, because, we've got to have a lot of faith. So, yeah, check it out, Sonny Talk Spurs on YouTube.
Brilliant. Well, it should be more positive than negative, because we're sitting in the top 4. Had a really good start to the season. Barnaby, tell the people where they can find you, my friend.
Yeah, that's right. So daily content from the Spurred On podcast, which on YouTube is at youtube.com/@BarnabySlater_, but also every day on the usual podcast platforms. So be that Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, etc. And actually, Sonny's just given me a great idea. Why don't I just use the international break to do daily transfer shows? I did release one today. I didn't think I was going to do any more, but now I might just do a week and a half of them.
I'll write that.
And just go into all of the transfer gossip and like Sonny's going to do or has done a deep dive into some of these players. But yeah, come and find me, Spurred On Podcast, daily stuff. Good fun. Oh, and also I'm sure you boys will put the links in the description box below, so check it out.
Yeah, of course. But not only the description box, they're going into the live chat as well. So if you want to click those links, hit subscribe on those lovely channels. And Sonny, I wouldn't be coming on here and telling Barnaby your great ideas again.
No, we're all a community here. It's all shared. Isn't it? So it's all good.
I'm joking. But thank you so much, guys, for coming on. We'll see you all very soon. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Spurs.